Hey, Popcorn Junkies. This landed late last night. Me and Nadia had rested our pretty little heads down on our pillows, and we were, well, if not fast asleep, certainly talking about the nature of energy prices, as you do. So this is a trailer for Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. Now, this is a prequel, in fact. It's not a sequel, but it's the second of the more recent iterations of the Mad Max films. So it's a spin-off, it's a prequel to Mad Max Fury Road, which of course starred the likes of Nicholas Hoult, Charlize Theron, Tom Hardy, obviously. Lots of kind of off-camera shenanigans, all sorts of suggestions that maybe Tom Hardy was a bit of an arse, or maybe that Charlize Theron was a bit of a wimp, and that Nicholas Hoult was just sort of giggling and gibbering in the background like an absolute sort of bald-headed lunatic, which indeed he was. One thing I have to say about the original Mad Max film, I don't think we were reviewing movies when that came out. I thought it was a sensational piece of filmmaking. If I had one problem with it, the only problem with it is something that I have is the problem I have with a lot of Tom Hardy's films, which is the accents he chooses, the voices he chooses, and the choices he makes in those voices. The rest of the film I thought was brilliant. I thought the set design, the costume design, the dystopian landscape, the camera work, the vehicular design, the sense of dystopia, the sense of sort of insanity, a Dune-like kind of gritty integrity to the world creation, a sense that this, some of the best films that create these kind of fictional landscapes, you watch them and you feel, wow, we are literally just seeing a slice of time within a continuum, within an era, within a universe, within a sort of continuing cycle of madness and complexity, which is what I feel is the problem with some films sometimes. That's why things like Lord of the Rings do so well. That's why Game of Thrones is so good. They're sort of, the bits that we see are embedded within a very well thought out and well mapped, detailed mapped kind of environment and fictional landscape. So I thought it was a sensational film, brilliantly edited, beautifully shot, sort of the insanity at the edges of certain characters, the kind of tech of people breathing through these horrendous, ventilators and stuff like that. So I'm excited about this. This is the, as I say, sequel prequel. It's the fifth ever Mad Max film. I have to confess I was not a fan when I was much younger. These iterations of this are what I wish it had been back in the day, back in the 80s. I wasn't a fan of Tina. I don't mind Tina Turner, but I didn't want to see a woman called Tina Turner on a car sort of singing with hair flying through the air. I wasn't massively sold on Mel Gibson. It felt more a sort of greasers, bikers kind of thing back then, rather than a particularly well thought through or detailed kind of genuinely dystopian kind of fiction. So who have we got in this one? We've got Anya Taylor-Joy in this. I think she's taking on the Nicholas Hoult role. Interestingly, they were both sat opposite each other over dinner in the menu, so she's obviously had a bit of a chat with him over the amuse-bouche about what it's like having no hair, because I think she has no hair in this. So you've got Anya Taylor-Joy in here. We've got Chris Hemsworth, he of Thor fame. Obviously, this is an Australian kind of thing. The original films are Australian cast, etc. Directed by George Miller, fabulous Australian director. He's getting on a bit now, but he's made all sorts of films. I think he made The Witches of Eastwick as well. But interestingly, Yahya Abdul-Mateen was originally in here, but due to a scheduling conflict, he's been replaced by Tom Burke. And I have to say, Tom Burke, as you'll know, is one of our favourites. So I think he's a good get. He's a good get. So let's check it out, shall we? Let's check this out. I'm really excited about this. Let's just hope it's been a fair few years coming, this, hasn't it? It's not like they're sort of trotting them out quickly.
Whatever you have to do, however long it takes, promise me you'll find your way home. Furiosa, give me this promise.
exciting. I forgot how good the music is. The music's great. And I also forgot how the whole sort of franchise, if you like, is a sort of meditation, isn't it? On the outback, on the sort of wilderness, the sand, the dunes, the future, the dystopian nature of society, the brutal ruthlessness. Do you notice that little detail there where he said lady and gentlemen's? The sort of inversion of kind of traditions and etiquette, and the sort of contortion, if you like, of morals and all that kind of stuff. Okay, all the things, all the right ingredients are in there. I don't have a problem with any of that. All the right things, they're all looking good. Anya Taylor-Joy, you know, she looks sensational. Her face with that kind of, you know, sort of tribal makeup, if you like, on there, that's looking good. I have to say, the voice at the beginning was a bit, threw me a bit. It was a bit weak, a bit thin. Do you ever get that when you get a voice that's thin, regardless of whose voice it is? There needs to be a depth and a resonance, and there wasn't that. So that felt a bit, I don't know, it felt a bit screechy. And then Chris Hemsworth looked good. Correct me if I'm wrong, am I sensing that more of that looked, I know CGI happens in all the film, well, it certainly happens in the last film, but did more of that look treated than, say, in the original film? I was getting more of a sense of some of the kind of vehicular moves hadn't really happened, but maybe had been, you know, digitally created. And that the dust surrounding a character, you know, as Anya Taylor-Joy came down the sort of side of a sort of dune, and you've got that sort of pulse of dust around them. That's really nice. But if I had a concern, I was getting kind of, what was that film? Was it called 300 BC or 300 or something? There was that film which felt like it was so CGI'd, you felt no sense of sort of battered realism. I mean, you know, this is that whole genre, isn't it? That thing of battered realism where you feel a sense of the dust and the dirt and the masks and all of that. I mean, you know, it all looked good. The design was all good. But I think if I had a concern, that's not a major concern, but it felt like, you know, when you get something that's really good and it's real from the 1970s and you physically play with it, and then it's like being sort of developed and devised in such a way that then it can be mass produced and made plastic sort of 30 years later. I don't know, it felt a bit more plastic than the first one. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I not remembering the original film in the same way? She looked good. Chris Hemsworth looked good. The villains look good. It feels too processed. It feels too polished. It feels too CGI'd.